Hello, 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 everyone. Happy Monday. You already know what day it is. It's Work and Play Replay. Now, what you hear in the background, I'm going to tell you why I have it playing. But for now, just listen to the song, and we're going to get into this conversation. You do not want to miss it. Just jam out. What's up, y'all? Come on in, come on in. We're getting ready to have the Work and Play Replay. Our special guest will be here just a moment. But for those of you guys who don't know or know what song this is, what song is playing in the background? What's up, Ashley? What's up? Let's do this. Work and Play Replay. All right, I'm going to give you guys the secret. Since you're already in here, I'm going to go ahead and type it in so you'll be able to see who's coming in. Our special guest is on her way. Let's see. Oh, you know what? Let's go. That's right, Brandon. What's up? All right, here we go. All right. Those of you guys who are here, we are going to have a really dope conversation. Episode 112 launched last Monday. For those of you guys who saw episode 112, who was episode 112 with? What was it all about? And what was your favorite part? Go ahead and drop it in the chat. Let me know if you guys are really, truly avid listeners of the Work and Play podcast, because this was the most that you could ever rob the bank in one single episode. One single episode. So who was episode 112 and what was it all about? Let's see. Those of you guys who are still typing in the chat, who was episode 112 about? I am a magnet to money. Okay, as you guys are typing it in, my special guest is here. So I'm not gonna waste any more time. Right now, we're gonna bring her in. But before we just do that, go ahead and check the background music so you're gonna know who exactly and why we're gonna have this conversation. Yes, ma'am. The Art of Transition podcast got it right. Listen, I should have had a sweepstakes for this. Let's see. That's right. Miss Donni Wiggins is in the house, and we're going to have a conversation real quick about episode 112, what you got out of it, what you liked about it, and you can possibly ask some questions about some business secrets so that you can fix your journey from corporate to entrepreneurship, from 9 to 5 to entrepreneurship, all of the above. You were the first student. Oh, you watched the episode for real. I was the first student. At least that's what we mentioned on the podcast. That absolutely was the first nugget that Donni shared on the podcast. So thank you so much for watching the episode. Let me pin this in the chat. Let's do that. Did it accept? Okay, I'm accepting your request. Let me see if it's going live. Unable to join. It says you're unable to join for some reason. Let me try to invite you again. Maybe if you hop off and come back in, you'll be able to. Oh, there it is.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hi, Miss Donni. How are you?
I am amazing. How are you?
I'm doing amazing as well. Did you hear your soundtrack before you came in?
Did I do what?
Did you hear your soundtrack before you came in?
I heard "Magnet to Money."
You know the reason why. What was that? What'd you say?
I said I heard "Magnet to Money" and I love that song.
That was one of the songs that you shared in the community that literally changed my perception for a long time. Literally. And so you literally came off. One thing that people might not know about Donni is like, well, and I didn't know about this either, but when you came on to the call and you were honest about like, hey, this song came up for me and this was one of those things that just lifts my vibration. You shared "Magnet to Money" and you sang it. I was like, okay, real stuff. I really, really appreciated that.
Yes, yes, yes. I love it. Bob Proctor is one of my favorite leadership and personal development coaches of all time. So it just is in total alignment to things that I listen to all the time anyway.
Yes, ma'am. Not to mention you have your own soundtrack. So we can definitely get into those because I think that one thing is you come from a very authentic place with your affirmations. And on the podcast, you talked about the winner's mindset. So we're going to get into all of those things. But before we do that, you really need no introduction. But for those of you guys who are still living under a rock, Miss Donnie, would you please introduce yourself?
Hello, hello to all of you guys. My name is Donni Wiggins. I am a business development strategist and the co-host of the Social Proof Podcast, which is the #1 podcast for entrepreneurship for Black entrepreneurs by Black entrepreneurs. Super excited. I work with entrepreneurs every single day, helping them to start, grow, and scale their business. So that's a little bit about who I am, and I'm sure more will come out as we go on.
100%. The one thing that I would like to add is changing lives every day, changing lives and changing perspectives. So thank you, Donnie. One, I'm honored that you were on the podcast. I really, really appreciated you sharing your thoughts and your platform, your wisdom behind the scenes and even before, even on the podcast. But I think that we could probably just get into, so those of you guys who are here, we're going to dig into the winner's mindset. If you guys watch episode 112 of the Work and Play podcast, Donnie really shared a lot of how she developed the winner's mindset from start to finish. And it's really like an unwavering belief in herself that we're like, a lot of us are like, how do I tap into that? So we're going to talk about that part, the mindset of a winner. And then I want to shift a little bit into like the business secret, so that you guys can understand how do you actually develop your business. Those of you guys who don't know, I literally met Donnie through a podcast. It was your story that changed my perspective of entrepreneurship. I found a clip from the morning meet from the Social Proof podcast, and you were talking about your journey. You were talking about how you came from corporate America, and there was at one point in time you had to share a value meal with your daughter when she was very, very young, and you really developed the like I gotta figure it out type of mindset. I really wanted to start there. When you were starting off in entrepreneurship, and well, shoot, it was in about 2008 when you shared that the recession happened.
Mm-hmm.
What was it for you that helped you raise your vibrations in those moments where you felt like you had no way to turn, when things just looked a little gloomy?
Yeah. So it wasn't 2008 that I was an entrepreneur necessarily yet. Not where I credit my entrepreneurial journey. I was probably trying some things then, but the years 2008 to 2010, we experienced the first recession, which was so much worse than what they say we're experiencing right now. Like literally thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people losing their homes, losing their jobs. And I was in that number. I was someone who lost everything that I owned, my cars, my home. And I wasn't, prior to that, I wasn't broke or poor. I was always, working a really good job. I always made really good money at that time. I had a really great career in the real estate industry, and that industry was impacted the most, right? And I remember when we're talking about a mindset shift, like I am super resilient. So when things happen, I tend to find my way. I process it the way that I process, and I push through all the time. But when this happened, I remember being in the middle of a foreclosure, and the bank sent a family in to attempt a short sale on my home so that I could avoid foreclosure. And this particular family came in. It was me and my daughter living in this home that I worked really, really hard for. And this particular family came in, and they had 2 children, a boy and a girl. And they were in my daughter's room, like in our faces. She and I were at home. They're in her room arguing over who was going to get her bedroom, because she had this beautifully customized bedroom that she loved, had so much pride in. And these kids are in her bedroom. They don't know any better. They're like in her face, in our faces, arguing over who was going to get her room. And it was in that moment I had to step out. And I remember going to sit in the stairs while they were still touring the property. And that was the first time that I began to cry over my situation. Prior to then, I was of course sad and disappointed that I was going through it, but I never shed any tears because I always knew that things would be okay. But it was in that moment where this happened in my daughter's face, and she's kind of like leaned on the wall and she's standing on the side, like watching. She's not crying. She's just kind of, you know, watching and looking as these kids are talking about how cool her room was, that I realized that this isn't just about me anymore. I'm a grown woman with a daughter. And my biggest fear became instantly having my daughter have to go around me or beyond me for an example of what a woman is supposed to be. It became my biggest fear. It was in that moment that I realized that I'm not just making poor choices and stumbling upon bad luck and it only affects myself. Now I have someone forever attached to me that if I lose, they lose by default. And I had to make an adjustment. Like, I could not any longer put myself in situations where my daughter suffered because of my poor decisions. And that's when the mindset change really came for me.
Thank you for sharing that. Honestly, I remember when you shared in the six-figure accelerator, and every time you tell that story, because it's a black and white slide, but I can literally envision exactly what that looked like for you to be able to go through the process and watch your daughter just, and you, as you mentioned, she wasn't even like tripping at the time, but it hit you and it woke you up in a way. And I think a lot of young entrepreneurs, and I know for myself, it's true. It's like you search for that reality check, because until then we're doing entrepreneurship on our own. We're looking for our why, and we're trying to communicate our why in so many different ways, but yours hit you right in the face. And the way you described it.
She was about 7 years old at the time that I was going through this foreclosure and losing everything. And, you know, at that time, a 7-year-old kid, they have a couple of pride, you know, pieces of possessions that are their pride and joy. And her room, her bedroom was hers. You know, it was her customized princess palace. When she had her sleepovers, her friends were all, you know, always excited to be there. She was proud to bring people home and show them her bedroom. And before that moment, before that short sale happened or that tour happened, she didn't really know what was going on. She just knew that we were spending more and more time at my mom's house. You know, up until that point, the electricity had gone out in the home. We were playing like hide and seek and games in the dark, like all kinds of crazy stuff going on. And she didn't really know what happened, but she knew that day. I was trying to shield her from it, but, you know, she knew that particular day what was going on. And like I said, I'd gone into the stairwell, and, you know, that's like when the tears hit, like, I've really fucked up. Like, sorry, but this is what I said to myself. Like, God, what have I done? You know, I'm seeing the disappointment in her face. And through all of this, my daughter came over to the stairs. She comes over, and I'm sitting and I'm just crying silently because I didn't want the family to hear me. And she put her arms around my neck and she said, "It's okay, mommy. It's really okay, as long as it's not the boy who gets my room." And I lost it. Like, I was like, you've got to get your shit together, and you got to get it together right now. You cannot afford to make these kinds of decisions and mistakes. Like, I had such a terrible relationship with money. I made a good amount of money. I worked in real estate. I was making a multiple six-figure career at that time, but I wasn't saving anything. I was shopping away all of my money. I wasn't prioritizing. I kept having these big ideas like, I need to do this, and I need to start this, and I need to do this business, or I need to invest here, or I need to save more. And it was always just ideas. I never took action. And then the time came where I needed to take action, and I was all out of money because I shopped all of my money away. I ate it all away. I partied all of my money away. And when the recession hit, I couldn't survive more than 6 months. 6 months of the little bit that I had left in the bank. And when I turned around and all the people that I was partying with couldn't help me, and all the handbags that I had purchased that made me look so great couldn't help me, I couldn't even pawn them for half the value that I spent on them because we were in the middle of a recession. Ariel, when I tell you, that was all it took for me to get my stuff together and make a decision to be better, just be a better human, be a better mom, be a better person, and really just kind of start looking, you know, that's when I began to look for purpose. Like, what am I here to do? It can't be, you know, and I also knew in that moment, I lost my job immediately. I'd made this company that I worked for, this developer, millions of dollars, like a quarter. And as soon as hard times came, I was the most expensive person being paid. I was the first to be let go. So no matter how well you do for a company, when CEOs and entrepreneurs and owners go through tough times, when you go through tough times, and they have to think about their own families, they can't afford to necessarily always prioritize yours. And so I learned two things. I wanted to be a better example for my mom. And I also learned that I would never, ever, ever rely on just one source of income for my survival. It wasn't necessarily at that time that I realized I would be the entrepreneur that I was today, but I knew that it had to be something that I was more in control of.
Yes, yes, yes. That is the most grounding story that you always like you literally share. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. And I hope you guys are receiving what Donni is being transparent enough to share, because a lot of times people might look at you and think that you're impervious or that you haven't gone through anything or that you haven't experienced anything. But the reason that you are where you are today is because you've experienced both sides of the coins, right? You've experienced both sides of the coins, being able to see and feel what it feels like to have to be so, like, I guess, powerless. That's the word that I would use.
Yeah.
Powerless, to maybe feel powerless, or to describe like coming out of a space where you have to figure it out. So you talk about, so you're right. And everybody in the story is saying storyteller and powerful, 100% powerful. When we hopped on the call, one of the things that you literally spotted out the first time we had a conversation was overthinker. So as of right now, I'm already like, okay, so she's a real person. She's got a daughter. She's been able to pull herself out of the dumps and literally get herself to success. She also came from corporate America, so she knows exactly what it's like to be at a six-figure job and let that go into entrepreneurship and decide to be free. When you're thinking about working with new clients, I was like, how does she know me so well? And I think your course is structured in that way where you not only know your struggle, but you know your clients so well. So when you think about the clients that you work with on a regular basis, what's that client struggle that you're really, really familiar with, or that you identify the most with outside, like when they're trying to get through their entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, so I'm a business coach. I work with people every day. And one thing that I've become really great at is identifying who my ideal client is, right? And when you know who your ideal client is, you know who it is that you're serving and who you're creating products and services and offers for. So that's first. The person that I serve and that I serve well is a person that has been a version of who I've been at some time in my life, right? So I understand the plight. I understand the wins. I understand the journey. And it's super important. I know these people so well because I have been there, right? I've been there. So you can't BS me. When you come on and you're a client of mine, you can't tell me that you're going through things and that's why you couldn't perform. We're all going through things. We'll always be going through things. And if going through something is going to stop you from performing, then hello, welcome to life. You're not prepared for life at your big grown age, right? Because I have gone through situations like as a single mom, I remember having to fill up gallons of water to bring home just so we could flush the toilet. That was me. I lived that life. I remember being in the dark and trying to get home as early as possible so that me and my daughter could spend daylight hours together, and then playing, games in the dark so she wouldn't recognize that our electricity was out. She thought we were playing a game. I remember, making plans with her dad and making sure that he picked her up by 7 o'clock, because if by 7 o'clock there weren't lights on somewhere in the house, he's going to start to wonder what the heck is going on in here. Like, I remember all the strange things that I had to do to still live life. And I remember that in the midst of all of that, I still found a way to study. I still found a way to seek mentorship. I still found a way to make things happen. So for me, I'm speaking directly to you. I know how to speak directly to you because I'm typically talking to somebody with a very textured past. You may not have experienced lack at the level that I've experienced it. And this is just a small fraction of my story, just a small fraction. When I tell you your girl is lucky to be here in the one piece that I am in, I mean that, right? You can't present an issue to me that you cannot overcome, even death. There are things that may knock you down for a minute, but we still got to go on, right? We still have to go on. And I work so well with my clients. They always feel like, you know, I was purposed just to work with them, purposed just to help them solve their problems, putting projects and programs and courses together that feels like I am talking to you. I hear it all the time on the podcast too, because I stick to my lane. I've defined my lane. I know who the other people are in this lane that I am in, and I stick to what I do, and I do it very well. I don't attempt to operate in anybody else's lane. I don't journey off into spaces that I am unsure about. I talk to my clients the way that I want someone to speak to me. So that means really direct. Don't sugarcoat anything with me. That means to be really real with me. That means to be really transparent. Those things are very, very important to me, right? And as a woman in business, it's very, very important to establish your authority right away, but in a way that people can still respect you for, in a way that people can still relate to you for. And I've just become really, really great at that, Ariel, understanding who is purposed, who is supposed to hear my message, and I only speak to them. I'm only worried about them. I'm only focused on them. I'm not focused on anybody else who isn't for me. I focus on the type of client that I desire to serve. And again, that's someone who has experienced some of the same things, and they're aligned with me in that way.
That's definitely one of the things that you mentioned in your business coaching. For those of us who are still working on becoming six-figure entrepreneurs, is the niches are in the riches. And I think that's probably the scariest part, if not that plus identifying your avatar, which you just hit the nail on the head around identifying who you're talking to. But it's like, how do we get over the fear of if I stop saying I'm going to help everybody, how will I get that one client? If I say I only help this one client, how will I make six figures? So could you go a little bit more into like how, one, you help other people get over that hurdle of being afraid of niching down?
Yeah, you know, the interesting thing that I have learned in most situations, not 100% of them, but in most situations, when people are saying to me, hey, Donni, I am afraid to miss out on money if I niche down. I usually ask them right away, how much money are you making by not niching down? Tell me about the money that you're making right now. And the answer is usually none to very little. So then my next question is, what are you afraid of? Not being broke? That's a real question. So for those of you who are all over the place, you're looking to serve everybody, I can just about guarantee that you're not making any money, right? You're bringing in a couple of dollars here and there. You have a lucky phase that you go through, but it's really difficult to consistently make a strong stream of revenue when you are trying to service everyone. And so when you're scared to niche down, it's really just you saying what I'm really afraid of missing out on